An earthquake rattles the neighboring country Nepal as well as parts of a state of Bihar. Many die and the number is expected to go even higher. Rescue operations are put into action by the Indian Air Force, the NDRF and various global agencies. Aid is pouring in from all over the world, but the question is, are we prepared for disasters like these? God forbid if they occur. The agencies such as the NDMA, NDRF and others have a huge task at hand. Are the masses aware of the steps that they need to take as preventive measures? Do they know what needs to be done in a situation like this if it ever occurs? India is a country where buildings fall even without earthquakes due to their faulty construction. So are we sitting on a time bomb? These are a few questions that I am asking today. Welcome to Insight. I'm Lottie Alaric. To carry this discussion forward, I have in the studio a distinguished panel of guests, and I'm very happy to welcome Mr. S.S. Guleria, DIG Operations from the NDRF. I welcome you to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Sitting next to him is Mr. K.M. Singh, former member of the NDMA. I welcome you too. And we also are joined by Mr. Himanshu Thakkar, Coordinator, South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers and People. I welcome you to the show, sir. So let me begin with you, Mr. Guleria. Now, an earthquake of such high magnitude, were we really expecting something like this to happen in our neighboring country?
Yes, it was very much expected.
Okay.
In fact, Nepal is in seismic zone 5,
right,
and it has got the history of this kind of massive earthquake in the past also. Such earthquake has taken place. It was 8 Richter scale and above in 1934. And at that time also more than 10,000 people were died. So it was very much expected, and it has come. It has come after say completion of its cycle, which is say around after 50 to 60 years. So it was expected.
It was expected. Now, Mr. Singh, to expect something and then to be prepared for it, these are two different things. And somehow a prediction like this, not many people would take it seriously. So which means that if it occurs, the dangers could be much higher, and of course the casualties, the rate of casualty also would be much higher. So what would you want to say specifically about this earthquake as an overview?
About this earthquake, Guleria mentioned, if you see in the last century, there were only 2 major earthquakes, plus 7, 1934 Nepal and 1950 in northeast Assam. But in the last 15 years, we have had 4 incidents of plus 7. Gujarat earthquake 2001, tsunami 2004, JNK 2005, and now. So the frequency has increased. And as Guleria mentioned, 50-year cycle. Last 50 years, we haven't had a major earthquake. So it is very much expected. I would say why we need greater preparedness now is, if you analyze these 3-4 earthquakes that happened, 2001 was in Gujarat, but 2005 in POK, the tsunami in the Indian Ocean,
right,
this time in Nepal. We have been escaping, luckily, by the grace of God. But all northeastern states, Sikkim, all the entire Himalayan region up to JNK comes under zone 5, which is the highest seismic zone in the world. We have to remain prepared. And I'm sorry to say, we have still a long way to cover to be really prepared.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Now, Mr. Thakkar, now he mentioned something very pertinent, but this could also be very scary for the public. Now, this is frequency has increased. Now, first, I think we need to understand the reasons as to why is it that the frequency of these kind of disasters is on a rise.
Well, if you look at the earthquake by itself, then geologists are not able to predict what kind of earthquake will happen.
Correct.
The fact that the eastern Himalayan, the central Himalayan and the western Himalayan, all 3 regions are prone to earthquake of 8+ is known. And none of these regions have experienced that kind of
When
earthquake.
you say 8+ or 7+, this means that this is the scale on the Richter scale.
Scale on
That's
the
what
Richter
you're
scale,
talking
exactly.
about. Okay.
Now, all these 3 regions separately are prone, the earthquake of 8+ is due. The only region which has had this, as he said, Mr. Singh said, is the Assam earthquake of 1950, which was 8+. But this is due in all these, in fact, 4 regions. And so that's the first thing. And that due means that it can happen anytime.
Anytime.
And two phrases you used in the introductory remarks is very important. One is you talked about preventive measures, and secondly you talked about preparedness. Now preparedness has to be firstly local, because it's the local people, local community, local administration who responds first
yes.
immediately. If you look at these two, and if you look at, and the second thing you said is that you talk not about earthquake but disaster in general. If you look at our experience of last few disasters, leave aside the Orissa disaster of cyclone of last 2 years, most disasters we have not done well in terms of preventive measures, in terms of local preparedness. Thirdly, we need to understand that if these areas are due with this kind of earthquake, then whatever major interventions we do in this area, we need to keep this possibility and the hazard potential of this area in mind, and how our interventions are changing those hazard potential in the area. Now, hazard potential increase not just the earthquake, but accompanied by landslides, floods, gulfs, and flash floods. So all of these are, and in the context of climate change, the floods, flash floods, landslides, there is an increased potential.
True.
And when we do major intervention, we have to keep that. No, that's also we are not doing. We are not even assessing the hazard potential of the area when we are introducing major intervention in the area. So, if in the point of view of all these aspects, I think we are very ill prepared. And lastly, you know, we don't even have a proper post facto report about what exactly, for example, Uttarakhand was the worst disaster in terms of casualties in last 5 years. We don't even have a report which tells us that what happened in that disaster, what role played by different agencies and people and the natural different factors. We don't even have, it was Supreme Court of India which had to order the government to assess, for example, what role big dams and hydropower project played in increasing the disaster proportions. And then the government had to set up a committee which said that yes, the dams increase the disaster
I think we could come back to that a little later. But Mr. Guleria, I think again very important points coming up here, that we are not even assessing the situation, leave alone how we are going to manage it. So don't you think that this has to be taken a lot more seriously than we are doing now?
Yes, assessment of the damage, especially in the post-disaster scenario, that is very important, because it teaches us for the future that what lesson we have learned and what all good practices we need to integrate in our system. Yeah, that is very much required. As far as NDRF is concerned, whenever, wherever we are responding, after coming back to our headquarters, we are preparing such reports which are pertaining to only our response, that is the disaster response which we are doing. So yes, I agree that at national level there should be an assessment, there should be a complete report which should integrate all the stakeholders and how they have responded, what were the shortfalls, and how in future we can overcome those shortcomings. Yes, that is in fact very important, and it is required.
Right. So Mr. Singh, would you want to add anything to that? Because I think as far as NDRF is concerned, we know
before NDRF I have a few points to mention. What Mr. Himanshu said, I'll like to beg to disagree. On one point he said that most of the disasters we have not been able to handle well. Well, earthquake, yes, I entirely agree, country is not prepared for earthquake.
True.
If we come to disasters, then we also talk in terms of tsunami, flood, cyclone. Cyclone, today the country is much better prepared than what it was. In 1999 Odisha super cyclone, more than 10,000 people died, and almost similar cyclone, 1999 was 240 kilometers, 2013 was 220 kilometers. Came, population had increased manifold, and in 2014 cyclone Hudhud, similar. World was expecting huge casualty, but actually from 10,007 in 2013 it was only 21, in 2014 only 17. It is a matter of study by various countries how it has happened. That it has happened because
that
cyclone, our preparedness, National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project, shelters all over, infrastructure, roads, Odisha is a very well prepared state now.
Okay.
And disaster states, if state is well prepared, it can do well, very well prepared. So number one. Number two, so with cyclone we are very well prepared. Tsunami also very, very well prepared. Today we have in Hyderabad a center called INQUIST, which boys all over the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal and Indian Ocean. And any tremor that generates tsunami, absolutely real time, immediately the INQUIST is able to say that in Tamil Nadu coast, Andhra coast, at this time, at this height, after so many hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, tsunami will reach.
So people can be evacuated before that.
But so tsunami, cyclone, but yes, earthquake, I would like to come later, but earthquake preparedness, lot needs to be done in pre-disasters and during response and rescue.
Absolutely.
We had a lot of shortcomings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, folks, I think that's a good piece of news that at least we are prepared for the cyclones. But there is still a lot more that needs to be done. The road is long and we've got to do things in a hurry. Well, we'll have to slip into a very short break right now. When we come back, we'll be taking this discussion forward. So don't go away, as today we are talking about the preparedness for earthquakes and even the other disasters. Are we ready? Well, Mr. Guleria, you know, when disasters of this magnitude happen, they can be very challenging. And though it may be very easy for us to talk, you know, on this side of the table, but when these things happen, the face is totally different. And I'm sure this requires a lot of skill, a lot of training and everything to even go and respond. So do you think that in that area, of course, NDRF is definitely doing a great job, but do you think the other agencies also must come at par?
Yes. I fully agree with you. To deal with this kind of situation, you need to prepare yourself before disaster phase. That yes, you should have got the knowledge, you should have got the skills, and you should have got the attitude to deal with this kind of situation. That make you to perform at the time of crisis, and your performance depends upon these things only. So I would like to say that yes, as far as NDRF is concerned, I must say that Government of India under Disaster Management Act in 2005 have created this force, and it has come up very well. We have a dedicated disaster response force which is unique in the world. Nowhere such kind of force is existing. As far as our training is concerned, our training is of international level. We have integrated the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group guidelines, their training. The UNDAC methodology is also integrated in our training. So we have adopted the best training methodology, the practices into our actions. That is the reason that yes, NDRF, wherever we are going, we are capable, we are there to deal with the situations. But NDRF itself won't be able to cope up with the situation.
Right.
You need to have all stakeholders fully prepared, because disaster management or disaster response can only be successful if there is a proper coordination. And coordination with whom? With all the disaster response organization who are there into action. And if even one organization is not prepared, that they are going to mar your performance. So I fully agree that all stakeholders or all agencies, they should be fully prepared. There should be proper integration between them. There should be proper plan of action. There should have been regular meeting between them before before disaster period. So unless that kind of coordination, that kind of familiarity with each other, unless knowing the capability and strength and weaknesses of each other, yes, the NDRF or any of the organizations cannot perform very effectively. So I fully agree, yes, there is a requirement. Though a lot of things have been done, there are, I would like to say here that the Disaster Management Act in 2005 has given us NDMA. NDMA was created to create a very, very institutionalized framework of disaster management in the country, and NDMA has given that. If you look at the system in our country, at national level, there is a NDMA, at the state level, there is a SDMA, at the district level, there is a DDMA, and then as far as the response part is concerned, at national level, there is NDRF, at the state level, there is a SDRF, and at the district level, there are fire services, there are civil defense, there are home guards. So this three-tier kind of system.
So everybody has to work in coordination.
Everyone has to work in coordinations. But yes, all the other agencies, especially who are into response, though these are the response agencies, but those who are into the disaster relief, those who are into providing, say the transport, the technology, the latest the reports which are required at that time. So everyone has to prepare, and everyone has to give his best, and this best has to be given in the first 72 hours, which are considered to be the golden hours.
Right.
If you are not able to perform within 72 hours, then your preparedness is of no use. And
right.
that's what everyone should keep in mind, that yes, 72 hours, and within 24 hours, first 24 hours, you have to put your all resources into action, so that after completion of 72 hours, or say at the most 96 hours, we should be able to take care of each and every person who is affected by the disaster. That's what should be the motto, what should be the motive of any kind of disaster response when it happens.
Right, right. Now, Mr. Thakkar, would you want to add anything to this, particularly in the context of political will? Because unless there's a political will, not much can be done by any agency whatsoever.
Yeah, I think, see, firstly, all these institutions are supposed to be there on paper. In reality, if you see, and if you see in practice, for example, the Uttarakhand disaster of June 2013, or J&K disaster of September 2014, or number of other disasters, or if you look the CAG report, repeatedly they are saying there is no SDRF in Uttarakhand, there is no SDMA. There is not a meeting of SDMA. So there is leave aside the question of DDMA. They don't exist actually on paper. So local administration was found to be totally absent in both this flood disaster in 2013 and 14. So that's first thing. Secondly, even at the NDMA level, since June 2014, there are all members resigned and no new members were set up, except one member remained till December. And so
recruitment is a huge
essentially NDMA was dysfunctional without any members for almost 7-8 months. In January they appointed just 3 out of 8 members. So even now it's functioning with 3 members. So at the national level also there is a huge gap in terms of what it needs to do. And lastly, I think this kind of disaster management institutes can work if there is an independent oversight. It can't be just retired bureaucrats, society of retired bureaucrats. It has to be an independent expertise, has to be part of it, which will then take the issue in a transparent and accountable manner. If that is not there, then it can function like a closed club, and then we will not see the results. What, for example, Uttarakhand disaster or J&K disaster, lot of avoidable damages happen, but we haven't learned any lessons and we are still going on the same path.
So, Mr. Singh, do you want to respond to what Mr. Thakkar said?
So, the very valid points made by 2 panelists, I would like to add to that. Political will is very, very important. National level, state level, both. State level is equally important because, as you mentioned, disaster management is a state subject. Mentioned about Uttarakhand. There are 2 contrasting examples. Odisha has political will. It is very well prepared. It handled 2 disasters very, very well, remarkably well. It's appreciated all over the world. Uttarakhand not only is mishandled, but today also, after the disaster also, they have not learned any lesson. And I'll give you a simple example. NDRF is a big asset.
Right.
The government of India decides that NDRF will be at these 10 locations or 8 locations, and it's totally government of India funded. It's available in the states. They have to do nothing. We started with 8 battalions. After Kosi cyclone, Kosi flood, the government decided that there will be 2 more because the Chief Minister of Bihar and Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh wanted. So we had 1 more in Patna, 1 more in Andhra Pradesh. Government gave land free of cost. 2 more were sanctioned. 1 in Uttarakhand, 1 in Northeast. Uttarakhand battalion is sanctioned for last 2-3 years. And I was in the NDMA. We have written any number of letters. Even before the Uttarakhand flood, I myself went and met Mr. Bahuguna, met all. He said, we will give land. I said, we'll pay money. Even after disaster also, pre-disaster, land
has moved.
Today, finally, the government has decided to shift that Uttarakhand battalion from Uttarakhand to Varanasi. The state is not willing. What do you do that? So you can't you can take the horse to the pond, but you can't make him drink. That is one, political will. Now, then the political will at national level, NDRF has been created. Mr. Guleria made very valid points. But after having made that, lot of things NDRF required. It's a highly professional force. It's the single largest dedicated disaster response force for the world. But the point is doing very well. But today, it is one of the unique force which doesn't have any training institution. Our land in Nagpur is there for 150 crore for last so many years. Government is not approving that. All the 10 battalions are still in the prefabricated structures. There is no training ground. Equipment. When NDRF goes for disaster, one of the equipment is the live detectors, which will detect live people inside the burial area. Now, every battalion has 18 teams. To me, as far as I feel, because you have thousands of collapsed buildings, so every 18 team in the battalion should have 2, 3 or 4 equipment, so that they can. So 72 battalions. In my 72 equipments will be there. The entire battalion has only 4 equipments. Thousands of building collapse. Your manpower, you have trained manpower. If you don't have the equipment, what do you do?
What do you do? Right.
Canine has a very important role to play. Right in the beginning, when NDRF was made, the government has approved that there will be 2 dogs every team, so 36 in every battalion, which is also less from the international standard. Government say no, why 36? We have only 12. So every battalion has only 12 dogs. What do you do with 12 dogs? How do you locate the people?
So it means the people who are taking these decisions at the top are probably themselves not aware as to what is the requirement.
So that political will is required. Or also I'll say, now today if you look at Nepal situation, what needs to be done is, in the rural areas, whichever responsible agency is there, since there is no accessibility, they should have gone by helicopter, by heli-sidring, reach there, rescue people, come out. That's the only way to do. In our NDMA, I was looking after NDR right at the beginning. In 2008 and 9, Mr. Guleria is aware, we trained 200 people in heli-sidring with the help of Air Force. But those people after 5 years are gone. After that, now Air Force is not agreeing to give heli-sidring. BSF is not agreeing. Heli-sidring has stopped.
So that lack of coordination, Mr. Guleria was mentioning about.
Now helicopters. NSG after 2611s have been given airborne facilities. NDRF has no aircraft, no helicopters. Unless you give the helicopter, how can they reach? It will happen in India, but there is no helicopter available. Heli-sidring trained people are not there. So what do you do? So unless you give these things to the battalion, how? So we have constituted the battalion, give them training institution, give them infrastructure, give them equipment, give them canine, give them airborne facility. It will be the best force in the world, I can tell you, but it needs a political will. Lastly, states also, similar political will. SDRF, there is no mention of SDRF in the Act, but emboldened by the success of the NDRF story, we have been going to the state telling them to make SDRF. But some of the northeastern states, Bihar, Odisha, etc. have done. Others are not interested in making the SDRF. 14th Finance Commission is giving the money also, but the state is not interested. So what do you do, like Uttarakhand?
Right. Well, before I get Mr. Guleria to respond to that, we'll have to slip into a very short break. And so people do stay tuned, as we'll all see you on the other side in just a bit.